Eric, it's time to give the people a little bit of culture because check it out. We talk a lot about the historical perspective, but what about the modern day Avengers doing the damn thing? So, actually trying to contribute to this community, make it a better place. We have someone we actually had on before, two Sacktown boys, my good friends, Silencio Mikel, Mike Farr, also known as, and Jim McD, the Jim McD, coming on to talk about their new venture. And this is interesting because they finally decided to open up a gym, no less during a pandemic, which is a very bold move. Let's see what happens. It's very interesting though, because they've been participants in the powerlifting space and I would say the greater fitness space for now almost a decade, shaping the course as we know it right now of the modern powerlifting scene. And I think all of us have that intent of wanting to change the industry slowly over time. And you can see that manifest itself in their new venture, Third Street Barbell, their gym. So it's kind of cool to kick it, talk with other people, like minded peers about what they like, what they don't like, what they want to see change, and how they're actually doing the damn thing rather than, as it seems like on social media, not targeting anyone in particular, just complaining about things. It's like, oh, if you don't like the culture, so to speak, why don't you try and positively change it? And that's exactly what they're doing.
Yeah, no. Mike and Jim are guys if you know them, and if you've seen what they've done over time, you just want them to win, because if they win, it means we all win. And I think this is a really good reminder, not only just during the COVID era where we are more disconnected, and when we are connected, it's probably digitally. But even prior to that, I think we talk a lot about this in this episode. Some things are lost. You know, not all progress is progress in every single way it could be progress. So while I love many of the aspects of the internet age and the information age and the ability for you and I, for example, to have a 100+ episode podcast, even though we're on literal opposite sides of the planet,
Yeah.
that's awesome. We also talk about how some of the really cool aspects of gym culture are, let's say, harder to come by, and you have to be a little more intentional.
Mhm.
And I think that's exactly what these two gentlemen do. And they talk about their way that they're trying to do that here. And I think when you think about it, quote unquote gym culture is something that all disciplines of the iron can understand. Catching a chest day or insert body part day with your fellow bodybuilder dude who you're or dudette who you're training with. Going in to do an ME leg day or squat session. Anyone who's been in an Olympic lifting gym know that there's team training sessions, and even though you're all doing slight variations, it's all quite similar. And that's something that I think creates a bond between lifters. And these days, it just doesn't happen quite as much because a lot of what we do is informed initially, since lifting isn't quite as ubiquitous as I'd like it to be, online. So, you might go to the gym at the same time as some other people and talk to them and nod, but then you're on your phone looking at the program you purchased.
Eric, as you said, I think there's an interesting parallel we could draw here where we actually get a little bit of a slice into your life, the forming of 3DMJ, and how that started as an online community, then took shape in person, and how for Mike and Jim, it was an in-person community, and then how it later manifested itself online. Both extremely viable, but the power of community, and in this age where, as you said, we could be so disconnected, its real function and the real utility of it, and how if you've never, unfortunately, maybe haven't experienced it or one that you're comfortable in where you feel like you belong, some of the big perks, and I think this is just one of the clear examples where to an outsider, you could show up, it's like these two photos. To me, it's identical, but to someone that is in the know, it's drastically different. Like, oh, a gym's a gym, as an example, right? Like the statement, like a gym, like they both have barbells, they both have plates. Like, why would I want to go to this gym instead of the other one? And the power and the influence of community, your environment, the social support system, all those understated factors that actually add up over time. Man, if you've never had that, you're missing out. And I'll just say lastly, shout out to the Kiwi Palace. Shout out to Joffrey Nipples. Training with someone, I've missed it for quite some time. And so having someone to bounce ideas off of, similar mindset, training, all those things, the relatability, the shared, as we joke about, Eric, the shared trauma you undergo together. Oh, you thought you're going to get that and you missed it. Man, it's hard to replace it. So this is, I think, a fascinating look. I'm also curious about those that are listening, if they've ever managed to experience a community similar to this, not the type of community, but the level of attachment, let's say. So yeah, it's a monster episode.
No, it's a great one, and I think anyone who listens to this is going to want to see like Third Street Barbell in Sacramento succeed, and I really do hope at some point in the not too distant future, it's a place that can get much more success, because right now, of course, everything's a little bit on hold because of COVID.
Yeah.
But I think it's a pretty cool story of how they are managing that. And I think it's something everyone can relate to right now. So yeah, when you can, check out Third Street Barbell in Sacramento. And also, fun fact, we just hung out with Jim and Mike for like a solid 4 hours. And if you want to hear part 2, essentially, of this discussion, head over to 50% Facts, another great podcast. We just basically swapped the who's hosting who, and Omar and I joined those two kind gentlemen on their podcast after they were kind enough to come on Iron Culture. So you can get far too much of the four of us that anyone would want in 2 good doses. You don't have to watch them on the same day. You can spread it out. You can do pre-post of your workout.
Intro.
Just get that anabolic window. Intro if you want. If you want to laugh in the middle of a squat set, lose your Valsalva and injure yourself, and then forever curse our names, that is your option.
Heavy lies the crown for the fearsome foursome, Eric.
That's right.
Omar Yusuf reporting here. I'm standing outside of what can only be called the cultural touchstone of Sacramento. I'm outside of 3rd Street Barbell here, the premier lifting facility on the West Coast, the strongest gym in the West. Over to you, Eric.
Omar, how's the weather out there in Sacramento right now?
Okay, I got to be honest, because for some reason I'm freezing, despite it being sunny, despite it being very coastal. I don't want to call it coastal elite, the vibe I'm getting here, but it absolutely has. It's in the interior enough to not be too breezy, but it is still lemon squeezy. Over to you.
Yeah, I think the coastal elite's arguably the biggest threat to democracies and overall the whole world, even in countries where there aren't coasts.
Or democracies.
And I think the only benefit you have is that there in Sacramento, Omar, correct me if I'm wrong, if you were to look west, you can't actually see the ocean. And it's probably something to do with the proximity to that high sodium intake that makes people feel a little elitist. So that's why Sacramento is probably one of the better locations in California, as it's not actually on the coast, although they do have a river, which I am concerned about, but it doesn't seem to have prevented this wonderful gym from forming. Back to you.
Yeah, it's entirely unrelated to my nightmares I have on a daily basis of me drowning underneath a huge depth of water and just the coastal elites above me yelling, we want to make you equal. We want to make you equal. You can't accumulate personal wealth. But that's just something that occurs to me on a regular basis. I'm lucky to be here amongst friends that I am proud to transact business with, because we're all independent entrepreneurs trying to do the damn thing. This is almost like a reuniting, Eric, what we say, of the Sacktown boys, boys with the Z, talking about business, talking about fitness, talking about people being in the industry for well over a decade, which on social media, that means you're positively ancient.
Over the hill.
Yeah, I think you just called us all old. But yeah, no, it is a true honor, pleasure, privilege, and other positive words to have you guys back on and to be here with you. And Jim, Mike, thank you for doing this.
Thank you, boys.
Thanks for having us, man.
I'm excited to be here. Excited to see your beautiful faces.
Eric, I do have to say to you guys, and I have to big up Jim, because we're going to talk a little bit our history together before we get to the new venture, trying to be in the fitness space in 2020, 2021, where you guys did something bold, and I'm proud of both of you. To reiterate what Eric said, that you decided after a long period of time to open your own damn gym, where you've belonged to many different gyms. You've helped shape the fitness space that we see it. A lot of people don't realize, and that's why, Mike, we joke about this. We see iterations. I actually was talking with Samira, so her Instagram is Mini Myra, who competed back in 2018. She was like the second strongest in the USPA, deadlifted at 105 pounds or whatever, 410. And she was like, And she's like, now we're just chatting, and she's like, I feel like I'm old school, and I competed in 2018. She's like, I used to watch you and Mike like back in 2015. Like, you were the first channel that I saw. And now that's considered like, oh, 2015, 6 years ago. Like, you guys are the OGs. So I want to give a big amount of respect actually to Jim, Eric, because Jim, that was the first podcast I was on, was a little known podcast that had maybe 14, 15 episodes. And you were so professional. You actually brought a level of professionalism that it took a while for myself and Eric. It actually took, it was happenstance, Eric, when we had Danny Lennon on to basically fix our audio for us. We're right out of the gate. Like, you fixed the audio, the mic quality was good. All the fixings that make something seem professional and really make it professional, you had out of the gate. So this is full circle, man.
It's just because I'm anal. That's really what it comes down to. You know.
I'm going to say you're artisanal. And you've had that high quality podcast before there were high quality podcasts. So
artisanal.
Yes. That sounds that isn't dirty because it doesn't mean anything, but it sounds dirty, which is amazing.
I love things that sound dirty.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thanks a lot, guys. No, man, when I go back and listen to that stuff now, it's like, oh man, I had no idea what I was doing. But what I did manage to do was put out a show every week, and it was, decent quality, and there was a certain chemistry that I figured would work and did. So there we go.
Just cooking up that chemistry in the basement.
Well, you know what I was gonna say is that sometimes a podcast can succeed because there's tension amongst the host, and other times there's just pure, I wouldn't even say platonic, but there's a feeling, there's a bond that two grown-ass men can have that will just last a lifetime, and that unites you underneath the darkness. And so there's many different ways to do it. I do have a question, though, because we're going to talk about Third Street Barbell, which is the gym you guys open. We're talking about the fitness industry. A lot of people probably listening. In fact, if you're on YouTube, go ahead and drop a comment in the comment section of when you start either watching, consuming Eric's content, any of our content, or if you're just new to Iron Culture, when you started becoming aware of, let's say, fitness social media content, what year it was and who you found it from. Because it's really interesting where you join. But I want to hear from both of you, Mike and Jim, just talking about the space that you were in, the cultures that you first joined. So set up for me Sacramento, because Eric's actually from, so lest we forget, there's slices of Sacramento and basically everyone here. Eric is a Sacktown boy, and we'll get to that, your experience too, after Eric. But set up for us what it was like in Sacramento, the gym culture that you experienced also when you travel. Set up for those that by now, we talk about this, Eric. Oh yeah, squat, bench, deadlift, that's a given. Or flexible dieting, that's a given. We came from the position where flexible dieting was something you had to fight for. Where, chicken, broccoli, rice was the norm. You're doing deadlifts. I remember I'd post a video 9 years ago, me deadlifting. You're going to snap your shit up. And that wasn't just the outlier. That was the common opinion of the fitness industry. So set us up for the viewers here, where you guys started from, the culture that you came from, and sort of the journey from where that was to where you are now.
Although you got years on me, I might have more Sacramento and you might have more Bay Area. I don't know if I want to lead.
Go for it.
2003. Taking you back, kids.
Hey, kids, roll up the sleeves.
So I'm love basketball, fall in love with basketball my entire life, but I'm 6 foot on my roster and maybe 5'10", maybe 5'9" in real life. And I had very supportive parents. So my dad got me a strength coach in 2002, 2003. I was decent at basketball, worked really, really hard, and said if you're going to go to anywhere with this, you got to get fit, which is pretty crazy, actually, when you think about it, because strength and conditioning, as Eric and Omar, everyone knows, but not everyone listening, because you guys are listening to Eric because he's smart, but the table here realizes that strength and conditioning is so new, especially to team sports. Football, sure, you max effort squat and the 80s and bust up your knees and then you go and smash people on the field. But basketball, it's such an evolving thing. So for you, my dad, to think about that, I give him props. But so I was trained at this gym called Muscle Systems. And this all comes around even more now because Omar knows him, Kyle Omar, which I just figured out this year. His dad is best friends with my strength and conditioning coach. which just shows how tiny Sacramento is in the long run. And they both played college football, et cetera, et cetera. But basically, what Omar just said: broccoli, chicken, loads of steroids, hot, sweaty men in stringer tanks, looking like burnt chicken leather skin, just fried chicken almost, just doing bicep curls everywhere. That's kind of the environment that I got in. And I was lucky that my strength coach had a pretty good handle on things.
Yeah.
He's working on some rotational stuff with us. He's working on some footwork stuff with us. We're doing a little bit of strength work in between, some one-legged eccentric squats and just little stuff that you would think a 14-year-old should maybe learn how to move their body. Rather than, and we did some curls, of course, and we did some bench press and some things. But just that environment, looking back on it, I was like, oh man. It wasn't until later, around 2007, 2008, I was in college, started dropping out, and I started doing all the research. Like you said, who was the first person you started following or watching? And I was semi-lucky. I started hopping on bodybuilding.com, where a lot of us kind of got there. And there's a mix of information going on. But there was guys like Lane Norton out there putting out some information. I think Brandon Curry, actually, who is still super relevant. I think he was one of the first videos I saw on bodybuilding.com around that time. Later ran into T-Nation and things of that nature. And that's where I'm going to dish the story, because along with T-Nation, I started to find different strength and conditioning YouTube channels. Led you to powerlifting at the time. And although they're not the same, they're so hand in hand, right? Like some kind of squat, some kind of hinge, I still wanted to go play college basketball. So I'm trying to train myself at that point to really optimize things. And I remember seeing these dudes box squat. I remember seeing these huge, ginormous characters moving around 1,000 pounds, guys benching 800 pounds, all this stuff. And I was still 18, 19, so I didn't understand the environment by any means. I didn't understand squat suits. I didn't understand bench shirts. And I started working at a commercial gym as a personal trainer. And then we'll do like the Lord of the Rings thing, So like my story's still going on, but Jim's story's going, and we're going to go over to him, You know what I mean, Omar?
Oh, yeah. Oh, no,
okay.
I got it.
Yeah. Now we're on your ship now, Jim.
Okay. So, like, first time I ever lifted weights was in high school, and I took a weightlifting class because I have crappy knees and sports just did not work for me. Like still have terrible knee drop. I'll just be walking along and suddenly my knees fall out from under me. One usually more than the other. But anyway, though, nobody said you couldn't do strength activities. They just said sports maybe not such a great idea because you may actually just tear that tendon right off, which I don't know if that really happens, but it was a feeling at the time that it was possible. And so I did that, and then I lifted in college as a class with a partner, and then I joined like a local gym, like the muscle system type gym. There used to be big and small versions of gyms like that all over Sacramento, and 80s, 90s, going into 2000s, it was more bigger places like that and fewer smaller ones. And I joined a 24-hour fitness back when I still had a corporate job. And then I started getting involved in, online forums, back to T-Nation, bodybuilding.com just a little bit, mostly T-Nation, because I actually saw the first, iteration of their bulletin board system. In fact, they even, all that original stuff got deleted because they changed software somewhere along the line. So who knows what people were saying in 2002, but by late 2003, those things were rolling, and I met some people online, which was a singular experience because I don't think I'd ever really met people online before that I had actual conversations with, and got invited to go to a powerlifting gym in over an hour away from here, and I liked it. And I particularly, I've said this before, but I got into it because I saw competition before I saw anything else. And just looking at how people approach trying to perform in an environment like that. Just like the looks on people's faces and the intensity and all that really drew me in, particularly as somebody who likes to, take pictures or video or whatever.
Jim, and to pause for a second, because if this is the fellowship, we're going to introduce now Aragorn. We're going to talk about Eric for a second. Then we're going to talk about Midtown, because Midtown is perfect. The last of the Dunedain of the North. Okay, my man right here. I'm pointing right up if you can't see the video. But because Midtown, where you guys eventually ended up, it's beautiful because the gym that you took over is the gym where you guys, it was the cornerstone of what would later become a lot of powerlifting that people knew and were exposed. And we could talk about the Mecca, the same idea that, you know, bebop, if you wanted to play jazz music in the 1940s, you had to go to Harlem. You had to go to New York. We talk about, Eric, we talk about Venice, right? Gold's Gym in the 70s. If you want to be a bodybuilder, that's the Mecca. There's a few places, and it was very real that one of the places emerging, my friend who works with me, Nigel, who Mike knows, he fell into that watching Midtown Strength, watching Super Training. It was one of those places. I do want to ask the question to Eric now about your Sacramento experience, because one thing I'll give absolutely Jim credit, and not enough people recognize this, is that you were pretty much, as far as I saw, so we're talking now 2009, 2010, and someone could correct me. Someone's like, actually, in 2007, this other person, but on a wide scale, filming what I would describe as cinematic storytelling of lifting. So oftentimes you'd have someone with, you know, a 240p with a camera way back and it's a shitty set, whatever. You'd film faces, reactions, you try and capture emotions, the intensity in the environment. So that's brewing right there. We'll get back to that. Midtown, I like that. Eric, this is like the same era, man. You're also, once again, Sacktown native. Give me your experience, because the beautiful thing that I've experienced in Sacramento, there's different slices, right? There's different communities. So what's going on with you? Bring us up to maybe 2008, 2009.
Yeah, so let's see. I got out of the Air Force in '05. My wife, Barb, got out of the Air Force in '06. Late '06, and we moved back to, I say back to Sacramento, which is only an accurate statement for me pre-Air Force, because I actually am a little mixture of Jim and Mike. I was born in Oakland and one of my parents lived there until I was 13, 14. I went to middle school in Oakland, and then my mom moved in, and I moved in with my uncle for us to kind of get on our feet. It's basically the same story as Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. We moved out of Oakland into Folsom, which is a small, rich suburb of Sacramento, where we lived at my uncle's house. And he kind of became like my surrogate family there, and my cousins. And anyway, so I went to high school in Folsom, joined the Air Force. Then we were I was not in California, and came back in '06. And I had started lifting weights in the latter stage of my Air Force career. So my experience of my first like gym culture experience was actually at the YMCA in Augusta, Georgia, which was not one of these gyms. There was, I would say, maybe an average age that was dragged down, and not in a bad way, by the many quote unquote silver sneakers folks who got a insurance kick for going to the gym and working with the trainers there. So the average age is maybe about 72, I would say. So I remember as a young personal trainer there, I was always afraid that I was going to be on watch when someone had their last workout and their last day.
Have you had anything like that happen to you?
Close, but no.
I had a close one. Not death, but I had one close one in my first year of personal training in a commercial gym. Oh my God. Sorry.
We had a treadmill accident that I didn't see, but I came over to later with someone who was quite elderly, and they were fine, but it did not look good initially. Let's just put it that way. So anyway, I get my experience in a very like community feel gym. That's the way YMCAs typically are, and I actually love that. My first true I would say lifting culture really did start online. So that was I met Alberto Nunez, who was in the Bay Area, in the bodybuilding.com forums before we actually started meeting up and training together after we did our first show together in '07. So it was in most of '06 and '07 that I was training in a personal training studio where I worked. And then I would say the first time I got a really cool experience with a gym culture was competing at Chip Conrad's gym at the time, Body Tribe, at the APA meets that he would host there. And that was the first time I got to see all the stuff Jim was talking about with just the excitement and the energy that people bring to powerlifting meets. And I thought, this is really awesome. And I think since then, I've always appreciated that there's a difference between what you can achieve with a culture online, which can be very cool, very supportive. And I know there are a lot of people who just don't have like a fitness community around them physically, and they find that online, and it's the YouTube channels they watch and kind of like the curated little fitness world they live in on their phone and on their laptop. But when I saw that at Body Tribe, I was like, there's something here. This is cool. And then once I got more into bodybuilding and powerlifting, and this happens to most people, most trainers, I should say, eventually you don't want to work out at the place where you work.
100%.
Everyone knows what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
back at the Y, I used to, and this is like 05. So like high quality, like listening to MP3s was a challenge. Most of the time it was like, you try to have a Discman that didn't skip while you're training, right? So I didn't have any of that because I was poor. But I did have a pair of headphones that I would just put in my pocket, connected to
Yes.
nothing.
Yeah.
That's the trick right there. You know what's up.
Yeah. That's the
So-
fuck off move.
That was I know that I'm the trainer. I'm the one people ask questions of, and I have a bunch of clients, and I work with everyone here, and I know the guy who cleans the rooms, who runs the front desk and everything, but I really do want to get through leg day and not have to talk to you between sets of squats. So I'm going to at least add one layer where at least people with a sufficient level of emotional intelligence won't bother me. So that was kind of, let's just say that's a thing. For trainers know what I'm talking about. So eventually I started to train at, not Body Tribe because it wasn't really close to where we lived. And it wasn't, I mean, Body Tribe is awesome, but it's definitely like a movement gym. And it's not quite like a bodybuilding or powerlifting gym, although you certainly can do those things. So I would train with Chip every once in a while. Great guy, good friend. But a lot of the times I would be going to the Powerhouse gym that was off 50. And that's where I trained a lot. And then there was also, it was Powerhouse, and then there was Gold's Gym that was in, I can't remember which one it was, but it was the really big Gold's Gym with the 2 levels. And those are the places I trained. And I really loved when there was a true community feel. And I think what we had was very different in what I think we're going to talk about, what Mike and Jim have and some of those other gyms, is that we had a community that existed online. And we had a lot of them who just happened to be from the greater Northern California area, and we would meet up. So kind of like the Mad Ogus blew up, and we had folks in the Bay Area. Like I would say early on in the days of coaching online, people would see it as a benefit to being in a similar physical location to you and getting coached online, because they would come, and we could do a posing session with them. We could, coach them on meet day, things like that. And it's still a benefit, but now I think people are much more convinced that online coaching works, and they feel less need to be geographically close. But because of the era when 3DMJ started, we had a pretty large NorCal contingent, and even some SoCal folks like Bryce Lewis lived there, and he would come up. So like we had a crew that was in California, and we didn't have a home base. We were kind of like these nomads who came together, and we would recreate our online experience and really just be a nightmare for whatever gym we decided to go to, whether that was a 24-hour fitness for that day. And they're like, why are there 30 powerlifters in here and bodybuilders? And why are they, that's the group X room. That's not take off your clothes room. What are you doing? Oh, yeah. And this was, early days when filming in a gym wasn't just accepted. Like you would have to get a release waiver, and we were all just in our 20s and assholes. So that was kind of the early 3DMJ days. Eventually we had some good connections. Like there is the gym, another one that's off 50, which is a later invention, which is now like we've got a good relationship with them. And now that we're all a little more adult, when we have those, now they're international events. Like we all come out for like the big show in July, the one that happened the week after the one that you saw, Omar. That is a huge get together for 3DMJ typically at the gym, and they're all cool about it. And now it's mutually beneficial rather than snarkily tolerated. So
there's so many nuggets. We're going now from Aragorn back to Sam and Frodo. But one of the things that I want to note is that Eric hit the nail on the head. You youngsters is going to be like, you whippersnappers. You don't understand that back in the day, if you filmed in a gym, you were ostracized. You were looked down upon. It was a weird thing to do. And it's like, why are you, but like the audacity of this individual to think that the world revolves around you, that you're going to make this video for what? It's for your clients. And that's how I started YouTube. I wanted to film videos for my clients, and the only place to upload it was once again YouTube. So many nuggets there. I want to talk about Mike and Jim. I want to talk about Midtown Strength. I want to talk about forming community in person, as Eric alluded to, because all too often individuals, it's almost a given today that there's opportunities, there's perks, right? There's perks here of participating in the powerlifting community and the bodybuilding community. You can grow an audience. You can get paid. You can get the adulation, the validation of your peers. At Midtown, when we started in some of these facilities, it was basically maybe just the respect of your peers. There's no money. There was no social media clout. The gym smelled really bad. So you had to be about this life. Like it was rank. It stunk. Like the concept of swamp ass was very real. So set us up then, Mike and Jim, Sam and Frodo, now to maybe what? It'd be 2007? Like what year are we talking now? How are we getting now to a more powerlifting-esque facility or general training facility that encompasses powerlifting? What's going on?
Midtown opened in like late 2007, early 2008, and we moved in here. The group that I was involved in at the time that Mike was, I don't know what you were doing in 2008.
High school, senior.
Yeah. In 2008. And I'd just like to say that when we moved in, there was a window that was cracked. And I finally, about 2 weeks ago, got that window replaced.
Damn, should have left it just for the historical legacy.
Yeah.
Jim, I got a question for you about Midtown. Do you remember who was the first owner of Midtown?
So that's what I was gonna say. That with this, Sam and Harry were in episode 1, I think, Omar, because we're all meeting where the elves are. Because the owner of this gym, Tara Getty, who's always been great to me, studied and learned under Chip.
That's what
at Body Tribe. So that's where it gets a little weird. And I thought you knew that, Eric. I didn't know if Omar. Yeah. So it really does go, Lord of the Ringsy. So, who Eric was mentioning that what he was powerlifting with is a gym, and it's still a gym here. It's not Chip's, that exact space. Chip's does have a gym here, but that exact space still exists. But that Body Tribe is where Tara Getty was a trainer, and then she branched off. And opened this place, Midtown Strength, in 2007-ish.
Yeah, late 2007-ish, I think, early 2008.
Yeah, which it really does show you how small the world is. And then 2 years later, or whenever August started making stuff, is when I started following Berto and Eric, 2010, 2011 probably, which through bodybuilding.com. Like, it really is kind of weird.
Yeah, and I started shooting video in 04, honestly. But that's pre-YouTube, and there were a couple of places online that you could post stuff, and then YouTube came around, and so I got an account there and started posting stuff. So when we came in here, I started shooting, I think maybe more for posting online, because we did like a couple of DVDs in the previous location, and really all the content that we were trying to do was focused on that, and then came in here and. I honestly was like against coming here for a number of reasons. One of them is the noise from the freeway. I could throw a stone at I-5 right now, and it's still a problem. That I haven't solved yet. We spent $2,000 on insulation in this room, and that hasn't touched. Like people could be talking outside this wall right now, and I'd be able to understand their conversation. So,
it's loud. I love it.
Yeah,
I eat it up.
But
live it loud.
I mean, it's one of those things that bothered me, but it wasn't ultimately a negative. And I think that, really some of the best content that I produced happened in this building. Some in another place, but more in this building.
Yeah.
Where was I going?
Well, Jim, there's such a memory there. If you guys can give a snapshot for individuals that weren't there, because I would put forth that powerlifting gyms have changed the culture. So, Eric, we've spoken about this before on Iron Culture, where if we even look at the split between men and women, right? Where back in the day with powerlifting, 2008, 2009, it's maybe 5%, 10% women. Now, USAPL, what, Eric? It's almost 40%. It's a 60-40 split.
I don't know what our membership split is at the moment, but we do have a number of women, and we are absolutely a majority minority membership. Yep. That was not the case in 08 or 07 or 05. Usually not.
Yeah, no, for sure not. It was when I think of powerlifting in 2007, I think of some construction worker from Ohio.
That really wasn't the group, but yeah.
Mike has family.
Some of them.
Yeah, I know. There was a sort of a, functional fitness sort of CrossFit knockoff gym within within Midtown, and it was a trainer-based system for the most part. They had classes, but they had trainers that did group classes. They did personal training here, all that stuff, and then we were on the other side. And it really was not a unified community until probably 10, 11, 12, something like that.
Yeah, it was very broken.
And it was never what it could have been. And that's actually sort of one of the things in our mind was we want to try to have a solid community. It's one of the reasons that we haven't at this point decided to have trainers here, because they tend to have their own clientele and they don't mix and match with other people that much.
Yep.
We have plans for being able to, bring people physically together, because back in the day, powerlifting gyms, and a lot of them still do this, they train as a team together at the same time. It's 3 or 4 days a week, and it's, some gyms have a morning session and an afternoon session for powerlifting. Excuse me, they're part of the team. We were 4 days a week. We were Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, Sunday, and that's kind of the only time anybody was here to powerlift. There was very little any other time. Now, we have a 24-hour system here. Not all of our members are 24-hour members, but people come here and lift at all times of the day and night. And because we don't have a huge membership yet, what we're moving toward is figuring out how to create that kind of community when people don't see each other at all. I mean, normally in a team environment, people are asking you for spots, or they're asking how did that lift look, or whatever. And now, unless people are filming, you don't necessarily see what their stuff looks like.
It's kind of a funny concept to me, because I think CrossFit helped. I'd like to think like super training in our past kind of helped, but growing up, I played basketball, so like everyone practices together, it was normal. And then as soon as I stopped basketball, I already kind of joined the team, and so training at a team together felt normal. But I don't know the other side of like powerlifting or fitness. I know the muscle systems I went to where like everybody kind of knows Joe in the corner and Johnny over here, because we get off at work at 4:30 and we all catch a pump after. But the concept of training groups or training partner, I feel has really evolved over 10 years, and almost then obviously COVID too. But even after that kind of then de-evolved a little bit, where I think some people didn't get the opportunity to be around truly dedicated people. They're like, yeah, like I used to work out with Omar, and then he just kind of stopped showing up. Like you don't really have like the guys, the same kind of like you were talking about, Eric, the online mentality works so well because you're only finding people that are really in it. Like you're not going to casually end up on a T-Nation forum. That doesn't happen. You're not like, oh, how do I lose 10 pounds? And you end up in T-Nationville. Like that doesn't work. Like it's so extreme. And so you hunted, and you're not at the top of the bodybuilding.com to meet Berto. You're not in the first one, drop 10 pounds. You're deep in there like, can I do 5.5 creatine, or is that going to kill me for him? You're fucking in there in 2005 to meet Berto. And so then you're like, oh yeah, this guy will drive 100 miles to come train with me. Where even Jim going to the Bay Area to do that. And our members, I think, are already like that. Like they're in it. They want a team. They want to be a part of something bigger than themselves. And that's really what it is about for me, because I don't even like the sport of powerlifting, if I'm being honest. I like I like that. I like the team. I like the working hard. I like the sweating. I like the kind of like Omar said, like there's something to the stinky gym. There's something to just showing up and like kind of grinding something out just for my homie to give me a fist bump. And that's how it started for me. And so how do we rebuild that based on a business model? Because now we have to make money to keep the lights on. And that's kind of where Jim was going. Like you have 20 personal trainers, then you build 20 communities. Well, that's not what we want. All right, you have classes. All right, well, then you have the 5:30 p.m. community and you have the 7 a.m. community. Well, that's not really what we want either. And so that's kind of where we throw in apparel. That's where we throw in our content. And how do we make all these communities online and in person? Again, like Eric mentioned, how do we make them all kind of feel one, even though they might not see each other, Yeah.
And then you throw the pandemic in there, because obviously our original plan did not have a pandemic in it.
I actually wrote it in. Jim just skipped that line. I said, don't worry, it's coming and I'll fix it.
It was at the margins, and I'm very straightforward. I avoid the margins if I can.
Sure.
But yeah, no, the original plan was to be able to do events, for members and whatever once a month. And flashing back to the Midtown days, we would have meets here, and some of the Midtown people would come and watch parts of the meets because nobody wants to sit through a whole powerlifting meet. I'm sorry.
Harsh truths.
Yeah. But that did sort of grow more over time because some really phenomenal, monumental things happened in here. They were like there was a lot of buzz, and some people would show up, and there were Olympic lifting meets here and other kinds of competitions and stuff, and some of the powerlifting people would show up. But just working on that framework, we thought we want to do things that involve more people, and we want people to more people to get to know each other. And absolutely, we're going to do events when this is all past us that are not meets, or we'll do informal meets or whatever to generate more of that community feeling. We just there's so much we can't do at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's so much of our vision that is currently unrealized.
Now, I have a question. I'm going to dive it back to you, Eric, right after. I want to talk just quickly about the culture that existed to maybe describe some of the positives, some of the negatives of, let's say, powerlifting culture over a decade ago that, once again, people might not be aware of. You extolled some of the virtues of the communal aspect that might be there. I would say that when I joined a powerlifting gym years and years ago, and some of the remnants of that community, I would say there was a little bit more masochism than we see these days, a little bit more of an adversarial nature. So there is some fist bumps, but it was much more clannish. So are you part of my crew? So you train with me. Therefore, I give you props. Oh, there's a new lifter in here. I actually don't like you. Like, I don't like the way you look. I don't like anything about you. And so there's internal rivalries. And some of it was fueled. Like, that's why I make often the jokes about self-hatred. But it's like, what place is it coming from? Where it's like, this guy just got off work. He wants to blow off some steam. It's time to start yelling, time to crank the metal. Even the musical choices that have changed, where we made, like, the jokes that were made, it's like, all right, yeah, it's a powerlifting meet. It's like, when's the AC/DC coming on? Like, there's just givens where it's a very small community. So maybe just a quick question for you two. Can you describe some of the pros and cons that you experienced, let's say, in powerlifting gym culture at the time? So not just a Midtown or super training, but just you guys traveled to, it was a little bit more homogenous, I'd put forth, the culture at the time. Can you just describe some of those positive negatives for those that weren't there, that didn't see, Dan Green? Not that it has anything to do with Dan Green, but like all those moments, like Dan Green when he first started competing. You guys were there. Pete Rubish, George Lehman, Stan Efferding. There are so many moments that happen, so many records and all those other things. But just powerlifting gyms in general.
For me, I think the very beginning, and that's kind of like where the nickname came, is that the only like real negative, and obviously there's some, but the big negative was the gatekeeping a little bit. But I don't know if that was me being 21 or if it was the situation, because everyone was 35 and older. Jim was the smallest guy. Everyone's 300 pounds and over. Everyone's roided to the gills. Everyone's in suits. I'm raw. Those kind of things made me like, oh shit. But because I've kind of been in that competitive nature, I was like, all right, let me prove myself. Let me show up. Let me put in the work. I'm not going to lift what they're lifting, but effort gets seen in sports. And that's kind of what I've always just put my badge on. Like, effort gets seen, lead by example. I guess, yeah, kind of lead silently. And so I just put in the work. And then once you got in that shell, to be honest, with that first crew we had, and although the team might have been 50 people or something, I'm making this up, there was like 12 really. There's 12 that showed up every single day, and there's 50 that float, or 40 that float. That group, although I didn't love everyone, there is like a bond there, and someone came by and stopped. Shout out to our boy Juan. Omar knows Juan. Like, that's someone, like, I haven't talked to him in 4 years. I know if I have a flat tire on the road, I could probably call Juan. He's probably going to come help me out. And there are some of that pain that you went through, the stinkiness you went through, someone's kneecap exploding you went through. Like, there's kind of these things that you go through, similar to a sports team. That's the only thing I can relate it to, because that's the only thing I know community-wise. I think, not to get too weird, but like our generation, that is what's lacking. So like, I didn't really know my neighbors growing up. I definitely don't know my neighbors now. I'll give them a wave, but like, you just don't do that as much. At least over here. Hopefully it's better over there, Eric, where you live in. But over here, you obviously, like, it's not, the community is such a lack of American culture nowadays. Again, going back to what our goals are here, but I can't think of like a lot of negatives. And I was only here maybe a year or two and I hate to say this because it just sounds like I'm a dick, but like I was only here a year or two before like clout became a thing. And so our podcast started to take off. Mark's popularity started to take off. And then the people that came in after that, then I could talk a lot of negativity if you like. And then things just started to feel a little different. I'm like even you said it, Omar, like, are you here for like a Instagram tag? Or are you here for like, I think Mike's really cool and hardworking. I just want his knucks, and that's cool. And that, again, maybe because I have self-esteem issues, which I definitely do. I just need coach to give me a good job. Like, that's what I'm working. Like with our company, I just want Omar one time to hit me like, hey man, I'm glad you're doing that. Like, cool, bro. Kaizen's cool. You know, like that's all I need. And I'll keep going. You know, rather than some folks that might have shown up, again, might have wanted the clout or the sponsorships or the free shit or the whatever it might be. And that's kind of when my brain at least stepped out of what I was doing.
A thing I will say though is that I noticed pretty early on, like first powerlifting meets that I went to, everybody was so encouraging of other people. They were very much on people's side, trying to get, you know, trying to support them to get that PR or whatever, or, you know, win even if they're competing with you, whatever. And then you would see how people interacted online, and it was night and day.
Yeah.
Like that was the beginning of the most negative stuff I've ever seen until recently. Online was how powerlifters attacked each other online. It's like, really, what's the end game of that? Like what is that helping? Toward what purpose is that activity?
Ego.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my God. And I mean, to be honest, I blame steroids for a lot of it.
Me and Omar have had these conversations many times. When Omar and I like travel together, which we've done, I can't even count how many times. We basically live together like 24 hours for 2 weeks straight. So we have a lot of these talks, and it is for some reason, obviously it's ego driven. But I think the positive that comes about it with the initial crew I was with, and then even what Jim's talking about in those communities is, it doesn't matter what weight's on your back. Like if you've done a max effort squat and if you squatted 3 times a week or whatever for like 5 years, you all kind of know the pain. So like I see Omar getting fired up because he's a little bit scared of the 5 plates on the bar. It doesn't matter if I squat 1,000, but something's going on in his head, and I've been there. And so I'm going to give him a let's fucking go, you know? Rather than it's this mid-tier guy, whether it be for clout, ego, or maybe they really do like powerlifting. Maybe they love powerlifting. Maybe they fell in love with the barbell. Who am I to judge? But they've only done it like a year. Yeah. They don't really know. They're really fucking strong, maybe. Maybe they outpull me already, and I've done it in a decade. But they don't really know what it feels like to just do this silly exercise forever. I've done it for 12 years. The deadlift hasn't changed. I've done the same thing twice a week for a very long time. It's not that much fun anymore, I wouldn't say. I do it because I live it. It's part of me. But I don't just like, yay, deadlifts. Where this guy's, yay, deadlifts. And then he sees that I'm creeping up on his PR, and he's going to go online and talk some mess, you know?
Yeah.
It's not the same. I don't think you could get people that have deadlifted once or twice a week for 10 years in the same room and they can't relate. Those people will be fine.
Yeah.
You sit them down from anywhere, any culture, any background, any political, they'll have a conversation. That's okay. But you get some, you know, and everybody's a newbie at some point. What's the term for the learning curve where you're like, I know nothing, I know everything, I know nothing.
There's like a term model.
Yeah, right. And so that happens with whether you're an expert in powerlifting or not. It happens in every skill you gain to your ego. And I think because the sport exploded in 2014 to 2018, that we still have so many people at that peak. And so that's kind of where the negativity lies. But if people can push through, we might have the biggest, coolest community ever in a year from now. You know, maybe.
Yeah. Look, I'm just going to say before I pass it over to Eric that I'm a god among men. And sometimes I say that before I go for a PR. You know, I just little things, mantras you whisper to yourself that resonate with your soul. You know, I don't know if anyone else has ever said that. I don't know if anyone else has ever said that, but it's kind of my thing. Eric, I do want to say around this time, I first saw it would be probably on Matt August's channel. There was a young statuesque figure who was clearly at least 6 feet, lifting, squatting, looking hunky. And so this would be back in either end of 2011 or 2012, which amongst the fatness YouTubers, the influencers, predates pretty much everyone. I think only maybe Barquan, anyone that has, in quotations, clout. He may have done a powerlifting meet before, but you actually participated in powerlifting meets. We spoke about this, where people might think, oh yeah, Eric bodybuilder. It's like, nah, he's actually done more powerlifting meets. Can you talk about your own personal experience in kind of, let's call it the Greater Bay Area, the Northern California area around this time before we go back to the evolving culture of 3rd Street and, Midtown?
Yeah, my first meet that was sanctioned, we had a little push-pull back in the YMCA that I was talking about in '06. My first sanctioned meet was '07. So I've been competing pretty continuously with only no less than 2 years off in any given time in powerlifting since then. And I've had the fortune of competing in multiple countries now and in multiple states. So I've gotten kind of a different feel and multiple different federations. And I would agree. I don't actually think there was much gatekeeping. I do think, though, that there was a lot of self-selection because, like you said, powerlifting culture was very homogenous at that time. And if you didn't fit into it, it seemed almost impenetrable. Like, I just did not have an interest in doing equipped powerlifting at that time. And that meant that in Sacramento, there was one federation, one meet, and one place to do it, and that was the Body Tribe meets. And they started having like a raw division, and they kept noticing their numbers were getting big in the raw division, and eventually they were like, what happens if we just have an all raw meet? And that was, I don't think they were causing it. I think they were reacting to this kind of shift where powerlifting was becoming something that was a lot less niche. And I think, like, I remember talking to people who were, more in the equipped powerlifting scene. And it wasn't like a totally different alien culture, but there was no real inroad for me there, and they were super nice, super cool. And we could talk and we would have similar things to jive about. But I think it was very impenetrable for like, this just doesn't fit. Like, I don't want to spend hundreds of dollars on that. I don't want to learn how to lift in an entirely different way because I'm interested in bodybuilding and powerlifting. So it was kind of just like, this doesn't really fit. And it wasn't just powerlifting back then. I've told this story before. Berto and I wanted to do a strongman competition. We found this small little strongman competition, 2 weight classes, under 275, over 275.
Find the buffet, boys.
Which one?
Yeah.
Upwards.
Neither, because the under 275 entrance criteria were things we would have zeroed half the lifts. It's like, 500-pound deadlift for reps, and I'm like, sweet, that's one. At the time,
rep.
Yeah. So I mean, I guess I wouldn't have technically zeroed that, but then they're like, oh, and it's only conventional. I was like, okay, and I'm zeroing it again, and we're back. So it was there was a like today. I think people don't necessarily appreciate how not homogenous some of these lifting cultures are and how you can find your own version of it. But I really do think that one thing I'm hearing and what I'm thinking of is just the importance of community and how it can actually be quite fragile if you let things like clout or different values get in there. And I think people, because communities kind of form organically, you don't realize that you can really mess that up by having small changes. Like for example, like I'll take some culpability in promoting the idea of like full body workouts or not being too structured. Like there's nothing wrong with benching on the same day as you deadlift. Well, the unfortunate side effect of that is you don't have the crew that does squat on Monday, bench on Wednesday, and deadlift on Friday anymore. Same thing with bodybuilding. Shout out Todd Beasley, who was someone I found through the muscular development forums, who also lived in Sacramento, like 5 minutes away from me, and we became training partners. We had a body part split that we trained together on Monday through Friday. And that's the same kind of equivalent to the powerlifting community. But then as we start doing things that are a little more informed by the internet and everyone finds their own niche and there's so much more information, it's less common now to have a training partner. And I wouldn't say I really experienced having a regular training schedule with a crew that I got there with and all those aspects of community until I did Olympic lifting as part of the North Sport Olympic Barbell Club here in New Zealand in 2013, 2014, and 2015. And we would go in on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday at specific times. Everyone would be there. And Olympic lifting, even less variation than powerlifting. Like there's a lot of variance of the movements, but they're all holding a barbell and being on your platform, and there may be some blocks at best. We're not getting any bands or chains out, that's for sure. Makes 0 sense and probably quite dangerous. Now I want to try that, but
I've seen it.
Yeah, I've seen it too.
Yeah, we've seen it.
That's the influence of certain not to be named powerlifting influencers on Olympic lifting for the worse. But I would say, because of the ways that cultures can form in such various ways now, with the growth of lifting and the evolution of the internet, it's probably more difficult. And I would say, like I would agree with Mike, that it's something that's kind of lost and needs to be repurposed and reinvented and created, are those communities around lifting. And I think when you find a good gym, when you find a good crew, and despite all those things, it would lead you to doing things that are slight barriers to those kind of communities. It's so important because when I've had them, they've been critically important. They make more of a difference than a lot of the stuff that I write about or put citations after. Just having that kind of super motivating environment where as soon as you get into the gym, it is go time every day, and you find a way to make progress or to put forth effort, and it's just this state of arousal that is automatic almost. And I think that is really important.
Perpetual arousal around the homies. It can't be understated. And I think some cats might not be aware of this. For instance, when we travel, all these things, like Eric, when we were training, Mike, all the times we've trained together, when you go into these environments that are at once welcoming, but each person there is there to try and excel in their own given way, creates a level of you being comfortable to then express yourself that you might not be able to if the ecosystem you're currently participating in your own gym, I wouldn't say doesn't allow it, but as an example, before I joined Fortis Fitness, I was spoken to several times. I don't like yell when I lift or anything, but about the deadlifts, about, hey, you got to like set that down slower because it's on the second floor and there was a Blockbuster video down below and those owners are complaining.
That's what happened.
Was that?
That's what happened to Blockbuster.
closed.
That's why they went out. I made them go bankrupt.
I just bought stock in them, so I hope they're doing. I hope they're doing okay.
No, it was GameStop. No, but I was going to say that. So it's not an encouraging environment, right? Or when you're lifting and someone else is like, "Hey, don't use those plates. Like, I actually want to use those plates for my client." Like, you're just told basically you can't use these plates, so you have to get 25s instead. Like, there's barriers that people might not be even aware of. So when you find something that's welcoming, and that's why I want to talk now about Third Street Barbell, it allows you to fully express yourself. Usually that expression for us in this slice of the game is via strength, some sort of objective number, but it could manifest itself in a multitude of different ways. I think a lot of people forget the need to feel comfortable, to feel not only welcomed, but also then supported, the true functions of a thriving community. So let's talk now about Third Street Barbell. So I'm standing outside. I don't want to bring this up. It's kind of effed up. But I've been standing outside, the last 50 minutes? I haven't been invited
door's
in.
Locked.
Dude,
door's locked. Yeah,
dude,
sorry.
You guys are inside podcasting. I'm outside. The freeway's right here. Yeah. Talk us through then the vision of Third Street, because you have Third Street Barbell, then you have Third Street, also the apparel company. You have the slogan, good people, good company, good people. The whole idea, I believe, Mike and Jim, do you not have a mat? Or was that an idea, Mike, that hasn't been done yet but will be done, where it's like leave everything at the door? We
don't have the mat yet, but we got some notes at the front desk to tell people. I think based on the start, I think you asked in the beginning, like how it started or whatever. I literally just got blown up by ex-members of this gym a little bit over a year and a half ago, saying the building was empty. Jim and I had randomly about 2 years ago talked about opening a facility or a podcast studio or what it might be, and so obviously those things lined up. Long story short, we opened this thing. After many an hour, we opened this silly thing. But I think the general concept is a lot for like guys like you two, who pop in my brain a lot about leaders in the industry and people that I actually relate to on a fitness level. But obviously, we get along on so many levels. Two of my favorite guys. But
same.
The general concept of the training thing too is that I think as the sport of powerlifting's evolved, as strength and conditioning's evolved, as bodybuilding's evolved, everyone knows that having fun, and even those untangibles Eric was even talking about, whether it be community or maybe I'm doing bands today just because I want to freaking do bands today on my deadlift, is okay. And so the concept to have an available space kind of to express yourself, like you said, Omar, where we just have equipment, right? We have barbells, we have squat racks, we have enough for everybody. But we have machines if you need machines. We have some turf if you want to just do mobility, or we have a bunch of people that come in and do yoga together. We have some cardio areas if you want to do something like that. Kettlebell areas if you want to do something like that. And luckily for us, the community, the good company slogan, although it does happen organically, it's already in us. A large piece of our community is already here. Past clients that I've coached for years, our past training members, Marcus and Dan, training partners, teammates, they're here with us. And so, I kind of think about, like community, like a seed in a way, where you have to plant the seed. Although it's organic and it kind of has to happen on its own, you have to have a start. You have to have something, and then
Like sourdough.
I've never made sourdough.
Need
But
that yeast.
Yeah, I'm the yeast, I think. I don't know what I am, and maybe you're the wheat. I don't know if there's wheat in sourdough. But and
You
so
heard
you
it
got to
here, folks. Mike is the yeast infection of their gym.
the doctors are closed. I haven't gone. I don't know.
We have doctors that come here.
Check out my yeast member, man. So we give it the light, we give it the water, and hopefully it's going to go where it goes. We've only been open 3 months, so much is in its infancy. And all we can do is, one goal I've told myself for 2021, I'm not the corny, life coach guy, but I just said I'm going to be a little bit more positive when I can.
Sure.
So I hate mornings. I've been opening up. Someone walks in literally at 6 o'clock in the morning. I'm dead asleep. And I say, "What's up, bro?" I get one of these every day. Every day, I'm going to try to do that to every single person that walks in here. And even if I got to fake it to make it, I think there's no negative repercussions in that term of faking, although I hate fake people. Don't get me started. But I give him a little bit of my energy because he's about to work out. And hopefully, and I've already seen it start to happen slowly, although, like Jim said, we don't have like packed hours or communities yet. I see that guy who doesn't know the man benching, he's walking to the bathroom and he gives him a, "Hey, what's up, dude?" And that slowly starts to get contagious. So although I don't think we can build, the community of our dreams or something we've had in the past or something we want in the future, I think we're starting to lay these little bit of roots. And honestly, that's the number one goal. The clothing, like you mentioned, and stuff like that is a way to kind of spread a little bit of our creativity online and spread that community online. Again, like we talked about the forums or things I've seen you do with Rascal or our other buddy Bart with Barbell Brigade, a way to get those people that maybe they live in the middle of nowhere and they don't have a community they could train with to feel a part of something bigger than themselves, to so much you guys said relates so much to me in my story. Like Eric said, like you can find your power lifter. Like before there was power lifter, there was the dude wearing Timberlands and jorts and benching in a bench shirt, I walked in here wearing Jordans and a snapback to the side. And I'm like, oh, this is not me here, And luckily enough, and even look at me in gym, like we're so different. And we just relate on deeper levels, luckily. But you can find your niche of that. And so if we can make every single person comfortable here, I don't care how much money you make. I don't care who you voted for. I don't care who you pray to. And that's kind of what our note says in the front. I don't really even care if you like each other, but we're going to respect each other in these walls, and we're all going to go after the same goals.
Yeah, that's pretty much what it says. And we had particular ideas about how we wanted the place to look, and the way something looks gives you a sense of what it of a sense of place that is different than other places. Like no other gym looks like this currently.
Yeah.
I imagine that's we probably won't be the only one that looks like this for long. Just because trends happen, or maybe we're a dead end. I don't know, but I feel like we didn't know exactly what we wanted it to look like. We knew that we wanted to do it better, and we wanted it to be different. And different than what we'd seen, and different than what we'd seen changed a lot along the way in terms of, compromises you have to make about, like Mike was saying, we want, I think it was on our episode, yes, that the floors are not level in one part of the building, and we thought, we'll have somebody come in and just like level the floors, just like new concrete, whatever.
20 grand later.
$15,000. I was
Yeah.
like, nah, probably we're not going to do that.
It's cool. I'll just throw some turf on and hide it.
That's
we'll
where
just-
the strongman folks lift.
Yeah, we'll just make it work out somehow, and it sort of evolved. You know, the look is pretty distinct, but it evolved over time. It's not what I had in my mind. It's not what Mike had in his mind, I don't think. But altogether, it works, and people feel a particular way when they're here. And that was really the ultimate goal. You come in and you feel a particular way about it. You know, it's a gym, but it's not different than going to a cool coffee house that you like, or in Sacramento, a cool tap room or whatever. It's got, you know, a vibe beyond just being a gym.
It sounds like you guys have a lot of intention that has at least gone the way you wanted. Like I like the analogy of planting the seed, because, you know, like people are going to, you know, enter the gym and the community will grow somewhat organically, like I said, but I do think intention can go a long way. And I think it sounds like it's gone the direction you guys hoped, even if certain things weren't what you could have predicted, or you couldn't do exactly what you wanted. And despite things like not being able to do exactly what you wanted, and I don't know, a global pandemic, it's not in a different direction where you wanted to go. Is that an accurate kind of summary?
I think
Yep.
that's pretty accurate.
Yeah, I'd say 100%. I think, I don't know who I was talking to, if it was like my high school basketball coach came and visited, so we had a really good chat when he was walking around the gym, which was super cool for me. Obviously, my mom's been around, and you just have so many conversations now that I'm in public, because even before, all my work was online. You just didn't talk to people, you know, like I'd be texting Omar or something, that's about it. Now I'm talking to so many people, I don't even remember who I'm talking to. But I was talking to somebody, and I said this was probably the first thing that really... And I've worked for a couple companies and all this, but because it's brick and mortar, it's like the first thing I could really vision in my head for a year, and it pretty much turned out like what we wanted. And obviously, like Jim said, there's things we got to kind of drive around, but 100%. And the attention to detail that Jim put in, like some of the carpentry he did, I'm super excited for you guys to visit to see it. Like stuff like that, I think is kind of what makes us a little bit different. And that's just, it's special to me. We go under, people hate it. I don't really even care at this point. It's really at that level that we put so much thought into it, and the execution was there. And I don't know if that comes off cocky or not, but it's like we literally bled for it. So that's what I actually don't like about powerlifting, not to go to the side here, but powerlifting, like you can do all these things and you kind of know the outcomes in a way. Like I should bench 500 because I did so XXXXXX building up to it. And if I don't, well, then I messed up. And if I do, well, I did all this work to be there. Where basketball, there's like these strategies you can kind of build up around it, and there's kind of counter plays to it in a way. So, the defense is doing this. They're double teaming Omar. I'm going to call this player. I'm going to kind of adjust to that. And this was like that. There's so many speed bumps as starting a business, as both of you know, online or in person. There's fees and taxis and all this stuff coming at you, and websites not working, technical, you're always adjusting. But one thing we really did do is put in the work to get the result. The intention's been there, and I think it continues to be there, although it is difficult times.
99% of the work ourselves.
Yeah, or more.
Among the four of us.
Yeah, so I think that is what it is. I think it's our attention to detail. It's our we're laying the seed in every area we can. So we're laying the seed in that little community part. We're laying the seed in what it looks like and it feels like when you come in. We're laying the seed with the clothing and what it looks like and the vibe it gives you, how we write things. We just kind of took, like a holistic approach to try to make this what we dreamt of. And I think, as far as I can tell, we're on the right path. Who knows what the future holds? Because as you know, everyone knows, business, friendships, everything. There's things that come up that are out of your control for sure. But I'm proud of us, and I do think there's a lot of little influences that can go a long way in this world, and especially in this insanely negative world. Like we've had no incidences. Not like we have a crazy amount of members, but we've had nothing weird. And the world is so weird right now. The world is so toxic. Every single I'll get anywhere else I go, coffee shop, barber shop, people are bringing up shit, that you don't, and we talk about it, because we're so close, but anything's happened here. Everything's been positive in the building. And obviously, like, things will come up and we'll handle them as they come, but everyone's been so cool because the barbell can be that niche and that like blood for everyone. You know, everyone's so lifeless right now. Life is so difficult for so many, and we're on the upper end of blessed. There's some people really going through shit right now, and if we can help with the clothing, if we can help with the content, if we can make someone smile, if we can make someone just exercise a little bit, I think you know, as a human culture, we're gonna get through this silly thing. And I know I'm going on a mega sign rant, but I just don't see people negative in here, and that's the only thing like keeping me going right now.
A crazy thing, like without disclosing the positions of any of these people, some of the members that we have, and I don't even know all of them. We had a conversation this morning where Mike was telling me, "Oh, this person does this, and this person owns that." I'm like, "Really?" Like that tells me like we're very much on the right road, and those people aren't even necessarily the people that are going to be a core group of lifters that you're going to like take to a powerlifting meet or whatever. These are not people that are going to be a team. These are people who appreciate the aesthetic, the convenience, the environment, how, you know, being treated well, having clean bathrooms, which has got to be a rarity in the powerlifting world.
Oh man.
It just tells me that we're on the right track. I don't even know your question. Sorry.
Yeah,
to
I don't
rant.
know. I don't. Your
No,
question again was like,
I was
what
just
color
saying-
is?
Yeah, edit it out.
No, we're keeping it in. I do have just a few things that I want to say. One, Mike, I am proud of you guys for what you've been able to accomplish, because you can see the small details make a dramatic difference. I saw on the YouTube and also the Instagram and where you shared stories with me how, you know, there's something to it when with your own hands you're helping to create this. It's not just like, yeah, we hired a contractor and we want this, we want the concrete, we actually want it to be kind of stained, and yeah, we want this wooden finish for this desk here, and when you walk into, we want a particular angle where you could kind of see a snapshot inside the gym, but you have to walk around, so it's like there's a meeting room and then you go inside. It's like, now you built that with your own hands, because even if it wasn't 100% what you guys visualize, it's still, I could even see without visiting it, dramatically different than a lot of gyms. And it is a gym, I think there's a reason why you've had no one take a dump in your trash can yet, is because it is that welcoming environment, which it's inevitable. I'm not going to say which person's gym that happened to, but that shit happens. And if myself,
Shit does happen.
Literally,
shit does happen
happens.
in the can. And if myself and Eric, we're both cinephiles. I could say that. I'll speak for myself and Eric. We love, you know, Fellini, Bergman, Kurosawa, Tarkovsky. And our movie is Stuck Together, right? Is the movie that best encapsulates us, where no matter what, we're stuck together. I think the movie for you two might very well be Dodgeball. And I know, Mike, you reference it a lot about Average Joe's versus Globo Gym, where Globo Gym is attempting to sell you on a dream. Its conformity is basically what they're selling, where you want to look this way. You have this body dysmorphia. You need to improve. So the music, boom, 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 it's just blasting. You know, you go inside, people look great, you feel terrible, you have to be upsold on some training, boom, there we go. Average Joe's, the basic idea behind it is that you're defining yourself, or you're defining who you are, where I would say Third Street Barbell is an open sandbox that allows you to try and pick and choose what you do. To your point, Mike, when you said when you walked into Midtown or you saw the other powerlifters, I mean, I felt the same thing when I walked not into Fortis. Like, Sean was super cool, super inviting, but it's like, all right, yeah, we're gonna listen to this same song again. It's like that doesn't get me hyped up right now. Or the events that people are doing, what they're passionate about. You could find yourself, and you could find your own community, and a community based off of mutual respect. And I do think something slightly missing back in our day from the last several years of social media lifters is there is kind of that focus on the I, on me. And there's some participants who have never played on a team and don't know what it's like, where it's like you're sacrificing for someone else. What you said, Mike, where it's like someone walks in, you're the owner, you're giving them some of your energy. It's like, man, I'm not a morning person. I'd feel dog shit tired, but I want to make sure you're good. I'm expending some of my personal energy to give to you. Oh, you're about to go for PR. I genuinely want you to get it because I know how much that'd mean to you, as opposed to, once again, a little small encapsulated way that sometimes social media works, where it rewards you talking about yourself, right? You just be like, I got this new PR where it's like, hold the camera. No, not that angle. I've seen people have hysterical fits over how someone films. So they think about it like this. They're inconveniencing you
Portrait
to film
mode?
a set.
Really? Come
So,
on.
So right before the gym closed, there's this kid who joined recently, young kid doing powerlifting, probably 20 years old. And he asked someone to film, and I heard the entire exchange where he didn't know this guy, and he basically scolded him after. Oh, okay, yeah, I mean, so for the top set, what you want to do, I want it to be lower because I'm deadlifting, and when I'm deadlifting, I want to make sure that the barbell is in alignment with the camera. And the guy was just like, I was doing my set of squats, like you called me over. And he didn't even have the self-awareness to realize what an egoed out asshole he was being. So sometimes I think in the vacuum of social interaction, not some of your worst habits can manifest itself, but there are some big positives that if you've never participated in a community, people might not be aware of. And I just got to give complete respect to you and Jim for trying to do something different. And I like that, not that it almost stoic, the detachment from the success or from the failure. You're like, whether or not it succeeds, I did the damn thing. And Frank Sinatra style, you did it your way.
Absolutely. A thing that I will say that actually I think is a common characteristic among our members for the most part is that people who are here feel like they need to be here. I need to go work out. I need to do it. I need to be here X number of days a week. And people film their lifts, but we have people who film their lifts and don't post them on social media. Like they live for themselves. I'm here for me to do this because I need this thing in my life. And I think that's, whether they are intending to compete or if they just want to be in better shape or they just need to get the fuck out of the house because they've been working in the house since last March, they need to be here. They're driven from the inside to walk through our door.
It's a beautiful thing. Yeah. I think people who are like that, and I consider myself among that type of person, or people rather, they are very discerning about where they go. I know I am very discerning about where I train. And I think the fact that they are coming there, I think that says something. So A, well done. B, Mike, you spoke about agility, being agile, being able to react to things, and how, coming from a team sport background where you're facing an adversary, there's a whole nother element to these. I would call them like open sports, where it's not just a closed chain of events where you find the right algorithm for you, but rather you have to then react to things, and that is what life is like, and business is part of life. For entrepreneurs like yourselves, how have you had to be agile in the face of COVID? I think it's time we got to talk about the probably the biggest unexpected challenge you guys have had since you opened. How has that worked? Is it working? Are you guys hopeful? And what do you think the future holds?
Yeah, I mean, so we've done as much research as we can. Not that we're doctors or researchers, but we try to make everybody as comfortable as we can. And we tried to find as much information as we can from the county, the city, the state. And the biggest adjustments are just, I mean, as you know, as a researcher, and this stuff's so new, everything's coming out. So how can we find the safest protocols? How can we make everyone not only emotionally feel safe, right? Because maybe this disease is airborne, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't clean things physically as much as we can, right? So we're taking like as many steps as we can. And shout out to Jim, who does things that I would never even think of, and even if I thought of it, I would never do it. There's small like cases where and again, these are 100% anecdotal, but like a gym in Atlanta, a news story came up where one of the trainers at a CrossFit had COVID and exposed himself to 80 people or something, right? I'm not making these numbers up, but something of this nature.
So you've stopped exposing yourselves to your clientele.
I've been working pantsless.
50% fan.
I've been wearing pantsless. It's cold out here, so they don't judge me as bad, but... So Jim immediately, again, I never even think of that. Jim texted me that story. I was like, oh, that's cool. And so nobody got COVID from the exposure. Everyone got tested and no one had it. So I got that from Jim. I was like, in my little dumb meathead brain, I was like, cool. I said, we sound safer then. Gyms are safe, right? But Jim's like, no, like they did something. So Jim calls the gym owner or emails and literally says like, hey, what are some things you're doing to keep it safe? Or why do you think this is a case? Or what does your space look like? And naturally, I'm no doctor again, and my advice is meaningless. Edit it out or delete it. But powerlifting is much different than a normal gym. Every barbell is 7 feet long, standardized. Typically, some deadlift bars are longer, some squat bars are longer. So by nature, our sport is social distancing. Another thing we have going for us at our gym is you can't really see it even though Omar's out front, I wish you would turn the camera, but I know it's a far reach away, and I don't really want you to stress your shoulder out. But so to Omar's right shoulder, I believe, Omar, put up your right hand so I'm not messing up. Yeah, so to his right shoulder, there's a huge rollaway gate, and Omar, to your left shoulder, there's also a huge rollaway gate. And then kitty corner to Omar's beautiful hair and bandana, there's another gate. And your seat can also be used as a flotation device. So basically, as soon as it's not 30 degrees out, we start to open these gates. The information Jim got from this coach or trainers there is that they have a CO2 monitor in their gym. And again, this is no science. I'm no doctor. I'm not even stating that I'm even close to one. But obviously, it makes sense that if there's more droplets in the air and people are breathing on each other and all this stuff, there'd be more CO2 in the air. So Jim ran out. He immediately got us a CO2 monitor. And again, we're no doctors, and I don't even know what these numbers mean, but some doctor told Jim, like, maybe if it's below 600, we might be safer. I'm like, okay, well, we want to be the safest we can. Let's take, again, every little step we can to try to adjust around this thing that no one knows what the hell's going on, right? And so we have all these little precautions. And the biggest thing, I think, is just how can I look at every step from someone entering the building without a mask on, someone touching this with dirty hands or whatever? How do we make everyone comfortable, and how do we adjust around something that was probably the hardest question you could ever ask, because I don't know what COVID is. I'm not a doctor, right? I read as much as I can. I research as much as I can. I make people feel physically and mentally safe as they can. And that's kind of the biggest adjustment. To our business model, as Jim said, we wanted to run events. I mean, that was our number one thing. Like, how do we run a Mario Kart tournament? How do we run a cornhole tournament? How do we get people together that
do a movie night? How do we do?
Yeah, how do we have a large UFC presence here in Sacramento. How do we support those guys and watch some of their fights or something like that, right? How do we get events going with a community that's not just taking shots of vodka on a weekend? And not that the culture's bad here in Sacramento, but the bar culture is a thing, and I'm not against drinking by any means. I love to have a nice beer with Omar after a long day of podcasting, but how do we build positivity and community around that rather than you go to a bar, you just throw shots back with your homies and then you roll home, right? Like, that's not a community thing. So those things, like a lot of it, sadly, our plan has just been deleted for now or put on hold until further notice. So in some senses, I wouldn't say that we've had to adjust a ton. We're following as many protocols as we can. Obviously, everyone's wearing masks. We're in a back room if anyone's asking weirdness on the podcast or the video. So there's a whole wall here. We're in the back offices.
This room, the lowest part of this ceiling is 11 feet. So we're in a giant volume of air here. And it's really the concentration and the proximity that are the issue. So just to buff the fine edges of Mike's story there, it was a gym in a CrossFit gym in Virginia, and a friend of mine who in the DC area who's a dentist said, "Hey, have you seen this article?" And it was this CrossFit that had shut down due to the first shutdown, the first lockdown, and they said, "How can we reopen in a way that's safe?" And so they have big roll-ups like we do, and they positioned more of their stuff closest to the doors. And then they have a doctor as a member who is a researcher and said, hey, if you can keep the CO2 below 600, you're probably not accumulating so much exhaled air that the concentration of COVID would be bad. And then they had one trainer who exposed 50 people and nobody got sick. So I said, hell, we'll give this a try, and at least we have a case to make, Mm-hmm. And so
Jim, what about the business? From a business standpoint, I'm curious. Like, just pre-COVID, people are excited. Hey, I want to train at a gym. I assume there'd be a niche. Oh, like a powerlifting strength facility that also welcomes just general lifters. I think if you launched pre-COVID, the membership would be more successful than during COVID. Do you find often there's apprehension of people just joining, or just like it's not a life priority right now because it's like, dog, I'm bankrupt right now. My business, it tanked. I would love to go to a gym, but I'm super stressed out. Like, how do you find that, the business end of things?
Yeah, Omar, that was actually my question, because at first I want to say I'm really impressed by the care and the intent and the investigation and the effort you guys have put into managing the potential of the disease itself affecting the members. But yeah, I am also much.
Well, that's about the
I'm
dollar
very
bills.
curious about how you survived.
I would say that the majority of our current membership are people who are now working at home, and not all of them, but are now working at home. They have jobs that have stayed stable through the pandemic. They're middle and upper middle class. They're the folks that, like I said, they need to get out of the house. A lot of them, not all of them, but a lot of them. Getting people who are on the margins is something that's going to take the economy recovering.
Yeah, I would actually say we have a little bit of that because we have a fair amount of students. And
Yeah,
I
guess we do.
I think
That's
they
true.
work. They definitely have a job, probably in food or retail or some things that have stayed more open here in California. Not that retail, some booming business, obviously, like malls and everyone's hurting, but their jobs, like a Starbucks job or something still kind of flowing. Like Jim said, they kept their jobs. And then to be honest, our part is kind of walking that line because one county person told us, and we'll just be as transparent as we can here. I don't care. Come throw me in cuffs, officer. They told us that if you have 3 walls that are opened, that you're considered outdoor. Or you're considered open air, which was allowed to be open during, I think, December. We were technically closed. So we have that. We have 3 opposing, as I explained with Omar being out front, our great newscaster, where they are. And so we ran all that. And then, some source will tell you this, and these are counties or state sources feeding you different information. So we adopted that, and our general plan was just like, okay, we're not going to hide that we're open or hide that we're closed or fake or lie any of this, but we're not going to go on some grand marketing scheme either.
We don't have a giant sign out front outside other than the
address.
The address.
Yeah, or Instagram or whatever. Like I've been working out with my mask on, keeping my social distance. But I'm not saying come work out, everybody's free and open, and because I think if those people that are comfortable doing it and step into the building and feel comfortable, a lot of our people, I talk about percentages, 20% might work in the healthcare industry.
Yeah.
Doctors, nurses that are working in the ICU. And that gives me confidence as an owner, knowing that literally one of our old training partners, Jim's wife, obviously, some of her friends, a couple doctors come in and they're like, yeah, this feels pretty good. And even my basketball coach, everyone's, and he's really precautious. His wife came and she's a nurse. And they all came in yeah, this feels a little different. I was like, yeah, it's not 24-hour fitness.
Yeah.
As you guys know. So as Jim said, some of our people maybe are from that world. They might be from a commercial chain where they're not used to open spaces in a gym, so you feel a little bit more comfortable, right? We're just one big room. That's all that these style gyms are. But business-wise, yeah, it's coast. We put it on cruise control. We put our best efforts into those details that I ranted on that answered your question incorrectly. And so we're on cruise mode until further notice. Right now, yeah, again, gyms are supposed to be open air or outdoor. We want to make people comfortable. The X and O's aren't great, right? But that's a pandemic, and that's kind of what we've known. I've told this to multiple people. Basketball coach being one, he's like, "Congrats" and all that. He asked me similar questions. Like, yeah, man, I'm a genius or I'm a moron, but we'll find out in about a year. One of the two is going to happen. I think people need a place to leave.
Yeah.
I would also say 20 to 50% of our members have a home gym.
Yeah.
But there's something different about that, as we all know.
Yeah.
I can train by myself. I have trained by myself. But there's something, whether it's even just a good morning to somebody or music or a more open space than a one-car garage training in, there's a human essence that we've all missed over the last year. And so, yeah, it's kind of a waiting game, to be honest. I think as every other business, I think, we started an apparel company with it that helps some of the finances and allows us to continue to push forward.
We're not taking any money from the business.
Yeah. Obviously, we're not getting paid. But that's kind of the norm. If anyone, and maybe it's not as norm for people that don't. You two have owned businesses for a very long time and kind of know money comes and goes as an owner. Employees first, business first, and then you second. For those listeners that don't own businesses, that's how it goes. And if not, I think
That's
you're
how
a
it
shitty
should
boss.
go.
Yeah. Otherwise, I think you're a shitty boss. And so we're rocking and rolling, putting in kind of sweat equity, real equity. And just waiting it out. I think both of us have kind of casually chatted and joked. We're like, all right, we got about 8 months. Let's see what's happening. We're fine. I know that sounded all morbid. Everything's fine. we're more than afloat. We're doing absolutely fine. But I think that's kind of the mentality that we've kind of gone into. Again, opening a business in the middle of a pandemic, or opening a business in general. I think we kind of had it our first meeting. Like, yeah, man, like you got to go all in, pedal to the metal, or why are you floating? Or why are you trying to mess around? So you have to really go into it. The X's and O's will play out themselves. Again, if we plant these seeds, I'm a strong believer that you put in the effort and the result will come. So I'll have confidence in my preparation. I can't have confidence in a result that I don't know. Some things are out of my hands, but if I line my little duckies in a line, we're going to war together.
Yeah. I think it's about being well positioned when we all come out of this thing. That's it began to be obvious after we took possession of the building and started working on it. It's like, we could be like facing some difficult times in terms of being able to accrue membership. But if we've created a good environment, we've created a premium environment, because we are not the cheapest gym in town by any stretch of the imagination. And I think that comes down back to the idea that people are here because they want to be here and they need to be here. They need to work out. I think that the worst thing that you can do for consistency is to make your gym cheap or free, because you don't get the right people. I could go on. I'm not gonna. But the issue is just being
The market decides.
The issue is just trying to be well positioned. Like if you think about it, if you're trying to get a job and you're within an organization, you want to be the most likely candidate, right? You want to be the first person somebody thinks of.
Yeah, when a promotion comes.
When they're ready. Yeah, it's like, yeah, I want to. And so that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to be the most likely candidate for a lot of people as they come back to gyms, people who are uncomfortable or financially incapable of joining a gym outside of their house. We want to be that. And our location is, we're downtown. There are a lot fewer people working downtown than there were a year ago. And, a lot of our financial projection was around the fact that like 98,000 people were coming downtown Monday through Friday.
Yeah, we're about 4 blocks from the capital of California, 5 blocks, whatever, maybe a little more. But we're 5 minutes. We're literally a 10-minute walk to the capital of California. And so obviously there's tons of traffic politically and state-wise when doors are open. But many of those jobs have closed down. We just built a large entertainment center down here with the Sacramento Kings and a bunch of bar and a bunch of food. So obviously there's a lot more work going on. I wish I had a more direct answer for you guys, but I think the truth is, like anything else, is you kind of set yourself up for success, and then you kind of at one point kind of just ride the bull and let that thing rock and roll. So we're hoping for the best. We're working our tails off. We're trying to build a positive experience and environment for people, but with COVID, with life, obviously there's so many variables. Who knows what the hell is going to happen? Things seem to be trending in a positive way with some of these vaccines and some of the case numbers and everything. And I hope everyone's healthy and taking care of themselves. And I hope we do head that way. But who knows, right? Who knows? Weird variant pops up, and then that's when the adapting happens. Weird variant pops up. What do we do? How can we stay on top of that? And how can we continue to as any business, I think brick and mortar is a little bit different than online. So the brick and mortar for us, our number one goal of marketing is to get the word of mouth. And it's working so far. Hey, man, is it cool if I bring in a buddy tomorrow? Yeah, man, bring in your buddy tomorrow. He's like, he's enjoying it. He feels safe. He has a good workout. He's going to bring his pal in to work out tomorrow. And I assume his buddy's going to enjoy it as well. If I give him a hey, what's up at 5:30 in the morning. It's a lot of hey, what's up marketing. That's kind of my keystone, I'm
going to write that book right now.
I think at the very least, the fact that you guys can be in a holding pattern and that you have some runway before there's a problem is a really good sign, because there's so many businesses who, if they'd started, that runway didn't exist. You kind of start on a tightrope when you start a business, and eventually it becomes, a plank, and then it becomes a footpath. Then you're actually driving down the road and you have some ability to dodge obstacles. So the fact that you guys had that early on, I think, is a really good sign. And if you can make it through COVID, then I think that's the test, right? So I totally understand where you guys are coming from. I think I really appreciate and respect and understand that you guys are trying to provide a high quality experience to people who really value their fitness and who it's a part of them. And I only wish you guys the best, and I want to see it succeed for sure.
Appreciate you, buddy. Appreciate you. And maybe you can fly over here one day.
Yeah. Seriously.
One day when I can actually return to the country without being in managed isolation for 2 weeks, 100%.
Dude.
Yeah, and if you just open the doors to me, I'm right outside, but I don't want to keep bringing up that issue.
Maybe you could just like kick it on there until like Eric shows up, and then when Eric comes,
And
I
you
get it.
guys could both come in.
yeah,
together.
like put you guys
Yeah.
both in maybe.
It's like you want to
I'll
get
give him
into
a shout. I'll
You
let
gotta-
him in. Yeah.
Yeah, you got to wait for your older brother to show up to be like, no, he's with me. I'm like, oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
I get what it's like.
Sometime in September, it'll be fine. Just hang out.
Yeah.
No, it seems friendly enough. It's relatively warm, as I said, and it's not too breezy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh well, someone will give you food.
Yeah, for sure.
It's only going to get warmer in Sacramento, so don't worry.
Yeah, that's for sure.
That's my favorite. Everyone's gonna. I know someone in here is gonna whine, but you roll these gates up, and it's about 100 degrees out there. I was in here in a hazmat suit, spraying insulation in 100-degree weather. I've never been wetter
Sweatier.
in my life, but like working out,
Slippery when
it-
wet.
real slippery in here. But when it's just regular clothes, no hazmat suit, I absolutely love that. My old boy joints feel great. The barbell feels nice and malleable. I feel like Superman in that heat.
Nothing like training in the cold and feeling how brittle your bones are. You're like, this aches. Everything aches. Like, here we go. Well, I think we've already established where Third Street Barbell is, but just to hit it for the people that have been listening, just to hammer home, because there might be some people, hey, they might be listening from the UK. They might be thinking of traveling. They're like, I'm going to do, a trip to California. Oh, Sacramento, you said? It is downtown. So I could say from being, I'm the only like non-native or non-resident of Sacramento that from seeing where it is very much in the city. People are probably unaware of how many influencers' gyms are basically either in the suburbs or almost to the point of being rural. So they'll say like, yeah, we're in Houston, Texas. Like I won't name the gym. It's like it's an hour drive away from the city center. It's like it is Houston ? But I guess it's not. Whereas you're like right in Sacramento. So just for those that are interested, give them the pitch before we close out.
Yeah, downtown Sacramento. Airport's about 10, 15 minutes away. Capital's really, really close. Again, even with COVID, because we're doing outdoor food now. But once this settles a little bit more, our food culture is insane. Brewery's insane. Coffee's insane. One of my favorite things about traveling is that I love that you could just shove me in a city, and if I know that this city's different, whether I like it or not, just the feel of a city being different, because you can throw yourself in, some suburb in Ohio, some suburb in Pennsylvania, and they all kind of feel and look the same. There's something about downtown Sacramento that is so alive, and it literally was in its peak of growth before the COVID. But we have a lot of really, really strong, dedicated small business owners down here, so I have no doubt that we're gonna kind of rebound from that. We already are. We're not the only business, actually. There's been 3 businesses I've noticed that have opened mid.
There's a bunch
COVID.
of restaurants that closed, and then a bunch of new ones that opened.
Still open, yeah. So I love that. Obviously, the capital and a little bit of history down here with kind of the gold rush and things, if you're into those kind of things. But if you are driving around, we're an hour from San Francisco. We're about an hour and a half from Tahoe. Beautiful little angle up here. You can go visit our buddy Alan Thrall, Untamed Strength. He's about 15, 20 miles from us. I love it here. It's my city, and I can't wait for you two to come hang out with me.
We'll definitely have to make that the case. Eric, anything you want to say before I close this sucker out?
I just want to say I think this is a really cool podcast episode because it highlights a huge aspect of the culture of lifting that I think is ubiquitous across different lifting disciplines, and that is the culture of lifting with other lifters, which has a unique, something special feel to it when you decide, hey, let's go run this program together, let's train together. That I think is difficult to articulate, but something that everyone understands if they've experienced it. So I just want to say I appreciate the opportunity to talk about that, what leads to it, and how it is sometimes missing, and how valuable and memorable it has been in all of our individual experiences.
I want to thank everyone for listening. You can rent the classics, not at Blockbuster because I closed that shit down, stuck together, as well as Dodgeball, a true underdog story. If you're listening to this, you made it all the way to the end. You could do us a favor by leaving a rating and review on iTunes to, wage war against the corporate cabals that are ruling the podcast sphere, as well as the sexual health podcasts that seem to just really be progressing at a rate that, I'm not going to say it's unnatural, but it's untenable. So
People think you're joking. Why is that a thing?
like
everyone's like every podcast is like thing I fucked, guy I didn't fuck, lady I thought about fucking.
Yeah.
That's every podcast right now.
It's basically like porn ASMR where it's like you don't want, it's like I'm curious, like, oh, wait a second here. It's like, no, I'm listening to this at work. No, it's okay. It's okay.
It's educational.
Yeah. So you could do us a favor by leaving a rating and review. If you're on YouTube, go ahead and leave a comment. We're back every single Monday from now until when they let me inside 3rd Street Barbell.